right, so for the lower body day, we're going to incorporate the torso, legs, thighs, all the way down. Okay, we're going to start with some basics. We're going to go rationale, the reason and why. And for most all these, when you're first starting out, you want high reps, low weight, low resistance, low load, just so we can bleed the energy. And when we go into this specific training zone, if we will, ideally for most people, I would want to have them push each rep or each set of continuous movement until you feel a strong muscle burn, and then back off from there, okay? Also, as you go through, if you want to add in workspaces or going through the biggest range of motion you possibly can for each joint area that you're working for the day, whether it's knees, hips, ankles, lower body, what is the stress you're going to spend most of your time focusing on. Now for lower body, that's going to incorporate lower back, hips, knees, ankles, feet. It can incorporate the thoracic, neck, upper body, especially if you're under squat barbell loads. But for this purpose, this example, we're going to be holding on to weights, dumbbells by our side. But again, we'll go through variations and examples of that. So for most people, functional wise, squatting is important. However, most people throughout their everyday life, they don't come down to a perfect squat that picks up and up. It usually works well, especially for their body and for their spine, and if they're trained in that area. However, most people, if they're gonna go down, tie their shoes, they're gonna be in kind of a staggered stance. Whether it's picking their kids up, even bending down to pick something up, you can see how the feet are not perfectly straight and we're not coming down like a squat. So can we train and get used to a staggered stance? Now, one way we can do this is putting the feet in line with the knees, hips, shoulders, and then creating a box, okay? Now from there, as we go through, we got most of the weight front, middle, as we're going into this type of movement. And then also works well looking in front of a mirror. So when you're going down, you can notice your back foot. Is it coming outwards? Is it coming inwards? Is the knee buckling in? So try to keep everything stacked. Because if you start noticing these altercations, you can start breaking down different parts of the body, which obviously we don't want. So staggered stance, if you want to go under load, that's fine. Again, until muscle burn. So up and back and forth, you can add in walking forward, backwards. But for most people, starting stationary works beautifully. If you want to hold on the bottom, awesome. If you want to focus on knee over your toes, front leg, that can also help quite well as well. So again, variability, okay? Now that is in frontal plane more so. We're going to add in transverse twisting type movements, and then we're going to add in frontal planes like side to side movements as well, okay? So staggered lunge with weight. If you want to do like a Smith machine where it's a barbell that's connected to a machine that goes up and down, that works as well. So you're just stacking everything and transition your center of gravity. Okay, let's get into side to side movements. Again, 2-3 sets, each rep, and maybe 2-3 reps each set, okay? So whether you want to do this weight, no weight, transitioning side to side, feet facing forward, starting. As that becomes easier, we can start twisting the back leg, and then you can see how we're getting into twisting of the torso as we're transitioning the weight. It looks very complex. Break it down. You don't have to do this either, even if it's side to side. Pay attention to the knees. So, for example, if you shift off to the side, try to make sure that the knee is in line with the ankle, and so it doesn't come completely over. You're going to start breaking down the knee joint. If so, rather quickly. It's not going to feel as good. Again, you get the idea. Okay? As that becomes easier, we can allow the area where we're moving away from for the hip to twist, okay? If you have internal hip problems, impingement, rotation is the biggest thing that'll start pretty much the process of rebuilding the hip, but this is a perfect place to start in addition to that for most people. Okay. So, side to side, forward, backwards. Now, let's add in ab and adduction. So, mainly focusing on inside, outside portion of the legs, thighs. You can do this banded or cabled, to where you attach a small, like, ankle brace, and then we're coming either across the body, in front or behind, even as we're going up into a marching position or into a curtsy squat, okay? So, adduction. Now we can go opposite direction of abduction, okay? Again, up into a marching position or straight in front of you or behind. Again, you can see I'm working in different angles. Just gives different tissues. Again, variability. If you just want to stay straight outwards and straight inwards, fine too. You can do the same thing with certain machines in the gym that you're sitting down, you're putting pressure of the legs outwards against resistance or inwards, okay? If you want to change the angles by straightening your legs and bending your legs, okay? That's another way you can change the variables. So, we got frontal plane movement, transition from side to side, and then if you want to add in the twist, awesome. We talked about staggered stance. We're in kind of more of a sagittal plane, up and down, paying attention to knees, ankles, feet, facing straight forward, changing the stance, again, going to a muscle burn, strong muscle burn, backing off, and then if you want to go through workspaces after each rep or set, just uploads the information better to the brain, thus for rehab and a bunch of other stuff from there. Now, we can add in calf work. Now, one thing that works best with this is doing this ideally without shoes. For me, I got pretty much no shoes on in the first place, but what we can do is either calf raises. So you're either sitting down on a machine, there's a bar and there's resistance, and you're just going up and down, okay? You can do the same thing standing up and slowly going down. You definitely want to go, in a perfect world, past 90 degrees of your heels, specifically going downwards and then coming back up. You can change the angle of your foot facing forward to inward to forward outside, just so we had different angles of the gastrocnemius, like the calf muscles specifically. Now, for the calves, lower limbs, I like a push to pull movement, so calf raises into dorsiflexion type movement. So you bring your toes up to your body. So essentially we're getting the front, inside, outside, and bottom back portion of the legs. So whether it's you're standing in place, whether you're leaning against the wall, you're leaning against the wall, you just bring your toes up. You can bring your toes up and outwards, toes up and in. And again, moving till you feel a good muscle burn. You may have to stand on a cushion, a towel, blanket to have less pressure on your heel, but whatever works best for you. If you want to hold as long as you can, or even if you want to stand using a kettlebell, and you're either holding in a marching position or you're going up and down if we're marching in place. Okay, now that'll burn up the tibialis anterior or muscle, bigger muscle on the front portion of the shin. Okay, another one I like to add in, mixing in with the torso core, is what's known as eccentric hip flexor lengthening, if we will. So ideally you'd want a heavier weight. For me, I'm using 35 pounds. You're going from a contracted short position, ab crunch, and then going and lengthening back as far as you possibly can. You can bring your other knee with you, but essentially your hip flexors, which are usually really tight for most people, which can cause an anterior pelvic sling or different shifts which will force pressure off the lower back. Broad term speaking. And ideally I should use about 60 pounds or so. So you can see from short to lengthening all the way back. Okay? We don't want to go into hyperextension, so try to keep about a 100-degree angle from our thigh specifically, and back in. If you want to add a medicine ball, twist back to the left, twist back to the right, just gets different portions of the hip flexors, which thus will help for propelling you forward, sprinting, walking, running type movements as well, works incredibly well. Okay. The last thing I want to add in is backwards walking, because that encompasses so many other things involved. So when you're walking backwards, we're putting pressure off of our heel and our toes are facing straight forward, okay? Ideally, you would want to get in a little bit of a squat stance-ish. And then you can add in some variability. So for example, when we walk backwards, we can be twisting our body off to either left side or right side, which then forces different tissues to be activated instead of just forward and backwards. But it's also lengthening the hamstrings, which will have less pull. The back of the leg also attaching to the pelvis, thus ease in and pretty much strengthen the whole posterior chain of your body, okay? If you want to add in weights as you're walking backwards, you do this outside, inside on a treadmill, maybe at a slight incline, small incline starting, and go as long as you can, switching, walking forward, switching, walking backwards. If you want to add in side-to-side movement as well, we're adding in a bunch of different variables, so it's targeting the whole lower half structure of your body. So again, we have staggered squats, lunges if you will, side to side, transition with hips turn inward and twisting of the torso. Oh, we had abduction to where legs are coming inwards and or outwards, cables, machines, standing, seated, either or. Even into a marching position. Then we added in calf raises, changing the angle of where the toes and heels are facing, to dorsiflexion. Bring your toes up to your body, and again, changing the angles. And then the last one was backwards walking. So adding these in will burn out all the tissues. Again, starting lighter. This workout regimen for the upper and lower body day can be 2 times a week. Making sure you have proper amount of time for recovery. If you feel sore, that's okay. Just vary it and pay attention to the workouts. But if it's a lot for your system, cautious, be careful, and progress slowly. If you need to take an extra day to recover, please do, because most of the growth happens rest and recovery, and then you break down your body and you need to rebuild it up again. So let me know if you have any questions, but those are upper and lower body days.